because he didn't seem to follow a lot of rules other grown-ups seemed obligated to follow. He let me watch R-rated movies and told me how to sneak into the theaters. We bought 4th of July fireworks from the Indian reservation and used them to blow up slugs. The only time I felt like he was a real grown-up was when he was figuring out bills or being sad about my mom. Family breakups can be tough for kids and even harder for adults who no longer have each other to help make good decisions when it comes to raising their kids. Such is the case of Davy. When his mom leaves them, he and his father are far from the model family. But one thing is clear. Davy and his dad are the closest of co-conspirators. The Littlest Hitler by Boudinot. Then there's the time I went as Hitler for Halloween. I got the idea after watching World War II week on PBS, but my dad helped me make the costume. I wore tan polyester pants and one of my dad's khaki shirts. He painted a black swastika in a white circle on a red bandana and tied it around my left arm. Using dippity-doo, he gave my hair that plastered parted style that made Hitler look like he was always sweating. We clipped the sides of a 50-cent mustache and adhered it to my upper lip. My dad laughed and said, "I guarantee it, Davy. You're going to be the scariest kid in 4th grade." There were problems with my costume as soon as I got on the bus that morning. "Heil Hitler!" A couple of the big kids in the back chanted until Mrs. Reese pulled over to reprimand them. "Do you talk like that around the dinner table? I want you both in the front seats. And as soon as we get to school, I'm marching you to Mr. Warkey's office." But I didn't do anything. Everybody was glaring at me with grim expressions. I suppose it's important to note there wasn't a single Jewish person on the bus. Or in our school for that matter. When we got to school, Mrs. Thompson called roll. I stood up sharply from my desk and did the sick house salute I'd been practicing in front of the TV and shouted, "Here!" Some people laughed. After roll was taken, we took out our spelling books. But Mrs. Thompson had other ideas. "Some of you might have noticed we have a historical figure in our class today. While the rest of you dressed up as goblins and fairies and witches, looks like Davy decided he'd come as a real-life person." "I'm a real-life person too, Mrs. Thompson!" "And who would you be, Lisette?" "I'm Anne Frank." Mrs. Thompson put a hand to her lips. Clearly she didn't know how to handle this. "This is quite interesting. Being that both of you came from World War II, why don't you tell us about what you did? Davy, if you could tell us about Hitler." "He was a really, really mean guy." "What made him so mean?" "Well, he made a war and killed a bunch of people. He made everybody think like him. His wife was his niece. He only ate vegetables. Somebody tried to kill him with a suitcase. He kept his blood in jars. And then he took some poison and died." "What people did he kill?" "He killed all the Jews. Not all the Jews, fortunately, but millions of them, including Anne Frank." The classroom was riveted. I didn't know whether I was in trouble or what. Lisette smirked at me when Mrs. Thompson said her character's name, then walked to the front of the class to tell us about her. "Anne Frank lived in Holland during World War II, and when the Nazis invaded, she lived in someone's attic. She wrote in her diary every day and loved movie stars. She wanted to write for a newspaper, but then the Nazis got to her and her family and took them to a concentration camp and killed them. But then somebody found her diary and everybody liked it. When the set was done, everybody clapped. George Ford, who sits in front of me, he was dressed like Mr. T. He turned around, lowered his eyes, and shook his fist at me, saying, "I praise the fool who killed the Jews." Recess was a nightmare. I was followed around the playground by Lissette's friends who were berating me for Aunt Friend's death. How would you like it if you had to sleep in an attic and pee in a bucket and you couldn't walk around or talk all day and you didn't have much food to eat? It didn't take them long to make me cry. And then Lisette started passing around a piece of notebook paper that said, and all these people signed it. When my friend Charlie got it, he tore the piece of paper up and said to the girls, "Leave Davy alone! He just wanted to be a scary bad guy for Halloween. He didn't really kill anybody." "I should just go with somebody else," I said, sitting beneath the flagpole. Kids pelted it with pea gravel. "They can kiss my grits," Charlie said. "This is a free country, ain't it? Hey, stop throwing those... Charlie!" Whoops. Playground monitor. Time for war speed. Despite Charlie's moral support, I peeled my mustache off and untied my armband as soon as we made it to the boys' room. There were 3 fifth graders crammed into a stall going, "Oh man, there's corn in it!" None of them seemed to notice me whimpering by the sink. My dad was genuinely disappointed when he learned my classmates' reactions. "But everybody knows you're not prejudiced. It's Halloween for crying out loud." "I'm sorry, Davy. We didn't mean for it to turn out like this, did we? Tell you what, let's go buy you the best costume and do some serious trick-or-treating." The Halloween aisle at 6:30 p.m. on October 31st is pretty slim pickings. Wearing a discounted Frankenstein mask with the jaw torn off and a greasy Burger King bag salvaged from the bottom of the truck, we picked the richest-looking neighborhoods to trick-or-treat in. I got individually wrapped Swiss chocolate balls and an entire Snickers bar. "So, did you have an okay Halloween after all?" my dad asked, carrying me upstairs to my bedroom. I nodded and got into my PJs, then pulled the covers over my face and let him bite my nose through the blanket like he did every night.